headed up to New York to take on the Yankees, trying to stay in this race and ahead of this race and back in the AL East, and plenty of baseball to be found this weekend, and fake football downtown. Our final fake football game on Saturday night. The Detroit Lions are the innocent victims that are subjected to the always important third preseason game here in Baltimore, and the debut of Joe Flacco with the surgically repaired knee. Here from Detroit to talk all things Lions, and he also covers a little Michigan Wolverines football and a lot of hardball going on this week. He is Larry Lage, longtime AP sports writer in Motown. You can follow his journey at Larry Lage. That's Lage, rhymes with cage and page, and we welcome him in. What's up, Larry? How are you, man?
I'm really well. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. I'm trying to get through all this fake football here without falling asleep and without getting anything substantial injured along the way here. But the Lions do draw the straw here, and I know you cover the Lions, and there are many, many questions about the 2016 Lions, correct?
Yeah, and this is fake football, but this is about as real as you get in the third preseason game, the all-important, tongue-in-cheek third preseason game. Lions expect to play their starters for about a half. Not sure about the Ravens, but that's generally the rule of thumb around the league. So for the first half, it's about as real football as you're going to get in August. And the biggest question mark for the Lions is how are they going to fill the huge gaping hole that was left when Calvin Megatron Johnson decided to walk away from the league, and the Lions, relatively healthy at the age of 30, rekindling memories of Barry Sanders doing much the same thing.
Did you see that coming? I know I've talked to a lot of the beat writers, even back at the Super Bowl time about it. It is a curious decision, but apparently if you knew him, you wouldn't be shocked, right?
No, not at all. He's the kind of guy, actually like Barry, unbelievably humble, like over the top, why do you want to talk to me? Kind of go about his business type of guy, and was even that way around his teammates. And, you got the sense that he probably got enough money in his first contract for his life and his descendants, and, he obviously re-signed and had tens of millions of dollars come his way, so he didn't really need the money, and he certainly didn't want or need the fame. And I think, while he had some injury issues with fingers and knees and ankles, he also looks around at a league where, concussions are a real factor, and also, frankly, at a team that, with or without him, wasn't probably going to do much. So why do it? And he decided to step away.
Well, this is the first time in a while that everyone I've talked to this week says about the Lions they're probably not going to do much, yet the quarterback's been in place for 8 years, coach has been in place a couple of years. It really is about drafting, right, and who these draft picks were and what the ceiling is for a bunch of these guys, and they've spent so much of their draft collateral on the offensive line and trying to get that right in an effort to not only protect Stafford, but to try to run the football.
Yeah, drafting and developing is the name of the game in the NFL, and in fact, you could argue the same is probably true in baseball and certainly in hockey. You can't really build a team or even fix it with free agency, and while they did invest a lot in the offensive and defensive line, those are probably the two positions where it's hardest for a young player to break in and make an impact, so it may still take some time. And while Stafford has been here for a while, he's never really had a great running game, and I'd be surprised if he had one this year behind a rebuilt offensive line that is younger, perhaps more talented, but certainly not more experienced. And you're talking about a team that ranked dead last in the league in rushing last year. And, I'm not going to predict they'll do that again, but I'll be surprised if they even improve to the middle of the pack. And if you can't run the football, it's hard to win. I mean, the Patriots have proven otherwise, perhaps to a lesser extent in terms of not winning a Super Bowl in a while, but you've got to be able to run the ball and you got to be able to stop the ball. It's a complicated game in some ways, but in others it's relatively simple in that respect.
Well, the defensive line's where their strength is, even with Sue leaving last year and you getting our guy in Haloti Ngata. They feel like they can stop the run there and get after the quarterback defensively, right?
Yeah, I mean, Ezekiel Ziggy Ansah may be one of the league's top superstars that no one really knows. He kind of came out of BYU as a cute story about a player who didn't really know how to put his pads on for the first time when he played organized football for the first time in college at BYU, and the player that the Lions thought he could be, he's absolutely become that. He is a freak athletically, really humble off the field, and moves a huge body around about as well as anybody can. And as you mentioned, Nada plays next to him. The Lions signed him quickly when they lost Ndamukong Suh and Nick Fairley last year in free agency, and he delivered the veteran presence and production they were looking for. Didn't stay healthy, which can happen in the NFL, of course, and they did re-sign him this year. And they're counting on big things from him as well.
He is Larry Lage. You can follow him on Twitter at Larry Lage. That's Lage, rhymes with Page and Cage. He's the AP sports writer covering mostly the Lions, but also Michigan football, some Michigan State hoops. So I'll be tracking you down during the Turgeon season as well as the Red Wings and some international hockey.
In a month from now, I'll be in Toronto covering the last week of the World Cup.
You know what? My son had talked about going up there and checking that out. My son loves hockey. Your stuff shows up on our website because you're the AP writer, and we stream AP stuff at WNST. So I'm sure much of your work platforms on our website too. So I want to make sure that I say that. On to the Lions and Stafford and the pressure on him. We've all admitted they haven't had a running game. We all admit the offensive line's been a mess. He has, probably by his own admission, not been as accurate as he wants to be. But I don't know what the second choice is. We live without a quarterback around here for a long time. They will appreciate him when he's no longer around. I know they would have appreciated more productivity out of him. Where is he in this life cycle of being the franchise quarterback that hasn't won anything?
Well, he's all they've got, and, they need him to produce. He is coming off the best 8-game stretch, if you will, of his career. They made some wholesale changes last year in the middle of the season during a really rough stretch in which they started 1-7, firing Joe Lombardi, the great Vince Lombardi's grandson, as offensive coordinator, and hiring, real name, Jim Bob Cooter. They actually promoted him to offensive coordinator.
My favorite name, maybe in sports, is the best name since Dick Trickle left us.
Yes, no doubt. Actually, an all-time favorite of mine, not a household name, but a great name. There's a Michigan State football player back in the day named Napoleon Outlaw.
I like that. I like that.
And around a little bit earlier than that was J.C. Penney, a kick returner for the Miami Hurricanes.
I remember I Am Hip running the ball at Nebraska, too. So, yeah, there's some great names, but Jim Bob Cooter, that's a hard one to say with a straight face, and apparently he has a sense of humor about it.
Yeah, and, because he could clearly just be Jim Cooter, but, he's sticking with the Bob as well. And he really gave Matthew Stafford a reign he didn't quite have under Lombardi, in which he could make his own calls and checks. And the Lions are going to play no-huddle, hurry-up offense perhaps as much as anybody in the league this year. And partly that's out of necessity because, again, they don't have a running game. Their number 3 receiver that you'll see Friday night in Baltimore will be a guy that is familiar to your listeners and viewers, Anquan Boldin, who's still kicking at the age of 35. In fact, he kicks and punches in the off season. I did an earlier story about him staying in shape. I had a great chat with him, and he credits a lot of it to fighting, as he said, UFC and MMA dudes. So that guy is unbelievable physically, and was a nice experience to chat with him for the first time a while back too. What a competitor. He obviously knows Jim Caldwell well, the Lions coach, who was the Ravens offensive coordinator when they won the Super Bowl a few years ago. And he's the number 3 receiver behind Golden Tate and Marvin Jones, who they picked up this year from the Bengals, another player that your listeners and viewers would be familiar with, obviously a division opponent. So Marvin Jones, number 2, Tate, number 1, and Anquan Boldin, number 3. Not a bad 1, 2, 3, but anytime you take Calvin Johnson out of the mix, it's an absolute game changer.
Yeah, I know you wrote the story on Boldin. There's a real story this week, and especially for a preseason game. This is a real homecoming. Jim Caldwell coming back. Obviously on the defensive side of the ball, not just the coordinator, but you got Brandon Copeland coming back in, Josh Bonds, Haloti Nada. There's a lot of purple in that building.
Yeah, there is, and they're hoping that rubs off because the Ravens have been a consistent winner. The new general manager in town is Bob Quinn, who spent his last 16 years with the New England Patriots working his way up in the front office. So, they've made some changes here, and they're hoping it'll change. But at the end of the day, I see them kind of hovering around where they were last year, which is about 7-9.
I sit here in Baltimore. We have really two teams, right? And we follow the Capitals and the Wizards from time to time. And depends on which way the wind blows on Maryland. Certainly the basketball program, much more storied over the last quarter of a century. But in Detroit, I think of Detroit and I think of the Red Wings because I'm a hockey fan and it is hockey town. And the Bad Boys and, Tigers are filling it up and they're in the race and all that. And the Lions are the biggest brand there that's never won. But then there's the whole Michigan football thing and the Michigan State, Michigan thing. And Jim Harbaugh has very, very quickly become the biggest star in Detroit and Michigan sports, right? And they've really not won much, but the position he's made, the branding he's made, the way he carries himself, the prodigal son returning, bringing dad back, the whole deal. Jim Harbaugh's a BFD there in Detroit now, isn't he?
Yeah, no doubt. He's the biggest name and face in this state. And I would argue that this state has arguably the best collection of pro and college opportunities for sports fans. I think you'd be hard-pressed, and your listeners and viewers can think about this. Name another area that has 4 pro teams in each of the major sports and major football and major basketball from 2 universities. You can't find it. And that being said, Harbaugh is the biggest name and certainly a lightning rod, and love him or hate him, he has an amazing job of creating publicity and buzz for himself. And not to pump the tires on another story I did earlier this summer, but I tried to get a thumb on that angle with him and found that his Q rating, at least according to one source, was higher than Nick Saban, at least among millennials, which is basically the target that he's going for when he's in a rap video or, traveling around the country with camps or, even taking off his shirt at a camp in the South or doing a lot of goofy things, spending the night at a recruit's house, going after people on Twitter.
Wearing a Cal Ripken jersey and, in the middle of Patterson Park here in Baltimore with his brother.
Yeah.
Coaching up kids down the street from DJ Durkin. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. It's working in terms of a buzz, but at the end of the day, you need to win. And Michigan has been getting its doors kicked in by its rivals, Ohio State, for more than a decade, and Michigan State for several years now. He lost to both of those teams last year, and this year both of those games are on the road. And AP had me make a prediction for Michigan, and I put them at 11-2 with a bowl win and 2 losses to Michigan State and Ohio State. And, while that will look good on paper with one more win than last year, it'll also be kind of like still can't beat the Buckeyes or Spartans. Of course, I could be wrong. But, at the end of the day, I think they're overrated as the 7th team in the country. But that might be fool's gold early on for the Wolverines and their maize and blue fans because they open with 5 straight home games, all of which they should win, and they're not really tested for a couple months into the season, and they have 8 home games in all. So it's a favorable schedule in terms of racking up some wins, but they play Michigan State, Iowa, and Ohio State all on the road in the back half of the schedule, and that's really where we'll see what they're made of.
Larry, any thoughts about DJ Durkin coming to Baltimore, to College Park to coach the Terps? I mean, we don't know much about him, and they're certainly, you talk about profile and low profile. The Maryland football program, you talk about problems, they're between the Redskins and the Ravens. We traditionally, over 25 years, don't spend a lot of time talking about them because by the time they play on Monday, everybody's already on to the NFL. So it makes college football a much lesser light here. And Durkin is now, with Kevin Plank's money and with his recruiting abilities, has brought this thing here. I can't envision a time where Maryland will ever beat Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State consistently. But DJ Durkin's trying to live the dream here.
Well, Jim Harbaugh has a phrase that basically says he has an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
That's his dad's phrase, right? Yeah, that's it.
And the only coach that I think Michigan had last year that approached that would be DJ Durkin. We don't have a ton of access to practice to actually, see what these coaches are like in their element, but from all accounts, like his passion, energy, and fiery nature was every bit and more of what Harbaugh brings to the table. And, I think Maryland needs that. They can't just have a placeholder and, kind of a guy that's subtle Maryland needs to shake things up and prove that they can, get some recruits and win some games. And I think B.J. Durkin gives them a chance to be relatively relevant because, he has, a good pedigree. Being with Harbaugh, it certainly helps him to some degree. He's been around one of the best. And he just has like a natural energy and passion that I think will resonate with recruits and players. But, make no mistake about it, it's going to be tough sledding for Maryland forever in Big Ten football. Basketball will be another story.
Larry, great having you on, man. I'll definitely reach back to you. I know when the Spartans and the Terps get together in basketball season, that's become a fun little thing, too, along Big Ten rivalries that didn't seem even logical 5 years ago. Now it feels like, we play Michigan State now. That's good. I like that.
Well, conference realignment has kind of, made everything we thought was normal abnormal, and, it's hard to know who's where. But, I think Maryland has been a nice addition. I still don't quite see the Rutgers thing, although you're knocking on the door of the New York City market, and I guess at the end of the day, that's the footprint that the Big Ten wants.
It's our time at Rutgers, they say. Hey, Larry, great having you on, man. We'll continue to follow your journey out on Twitter at Larry Lage, as well as at WNST.net when your AP work shows up on our website. I appreciate you, man.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
You got it. Larry Lage of the Associated Press in Detroit, covering all things Lions, as well as Michigan football and Michigan State hoops. Got a pretty good gig out there. You can follow him at Larry Lage. That's Lage, rhymes with Page and Cage, out on Twitter. He's also got a wonderful Twitter cover photo of Ipanema Beach in Rio de Janeiro. Not that we didn't see a whole lot of that last week. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear. Our morning newspaper hits your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That is powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. If you need some inspiration, Planet of Triumphs can do that for you. You can jump out on the internet and find that. Get some great stories there from our friends at Planet Fitness. Still $10 a month. Get out there and support them. Last but never least, any breaking news, and the Ravens are pairing players, and the Orioles will be adding players next week. It'll all come first on the WNST Tech Service. That is our breaking news spam-free zone. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis Kolatzis will be here from 3 until 5, driving you home each and every Thursday as well. For me, I'm a very available individual. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Streaming live on our WNST YouTube channel, as well as on Facebook Live on my personal page. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.